Hi, we're the Garden Angels, and over the next 12 weeks, we're going to help you turn your garden into a feast for the senses.
I'm going to set ourselves a bit of a challenge. I think we're going to grow what we need to feed our families for a year, 3 families. I'm going to create a veggie patch from scratch right here.
I'm actually talking annuals, loads of colour for a spring garden. Visit a beautiful nursery, and we also talk about how to put an annual bed in your own front yard.
Perfect. And I'm going to give you some really simple tips on how to turn your garden into a perfumed paradise.
Ooh.
And I'll introduce you to some stunning new Aussie natives. So sit back, relax, let us do the hard work for you, and welcome to Garden Angels.
Of spring, I think of colour, and there's no better way to add colour to your garden than by using annuals, and they are absolutely perfect for all those lazy gardeners out there. Now, although they put on a fabulous display of colour, annuals are unfortunately pretty short-lived. In fact, their sole purpose in life is to flower, set seed and then die. But that's just another excuse for changing them over the next season. Now, each season you'll see around 10 different annuals in your local nursery. Just some of the ones you may see leading into spring are the beautiful primulas, or perhaps a pansy or two, and of course you can't go past violas. Annuals are sold in various forms. You can buy packets of seed if you're perhaps patient enough, buy them in punnets, or if you're anything like me and you want colour yesterday, why not go the 100ml pot? Now, these are commonly known in nurseries as potted colour, and as you can see, they're already flowering their heads off and waiting to be planted. Now, before heading down to the nursery, it's a good idea to plan out your annual bed, do a bit of a mud map like I've done here, and know exactly how many plants you're after. Stick around because I'll soon show you how to plant out your annuals, and Mel's got some great tips on fragrant plants.
Welcome back to Angels HQ. Now it's time to get stuck into this veggie patch. The first step is design, and I'm going to show you how to be a landscape architect in your own garden. Now, the first thing you need is a paper and pen, and really look at your backyard critically. You need to see where the sunshine is, you need to see where the shade is, if you've got existing garden beds, or you need to make new ones. I'm going to divide the garden into 4 because 4 is a nice even number. And the 4 gardens I'm going to create are going to have the annual vegetables for this year. I think also we need some citrus trees for all of our gin and tonics throughout the summer months. And in front of those, I think some Mediterranean herbs might be nice. You've got to have at least 6 hours of sun a day for vegetables to grow nice and strong. The other thing I want to plant is potatoes because I love hot chips. So we'll put the potatoes down here in the garden beds along the fence. And some perennial vegetables too. So I'll put some water tanks in there and I'll plant some rhubarb and some strawberries. Absolutely delicious. Let's get into it. Quite a lot of stuff, isn't it? How am I going to move that all by myself? Some help would be nice. Excellent. I'm going to build 4 different garden beds with different materials, and that's just to show you some options. The first one, timber sleepers. The second, Besser blocks, and then straw bales, and the last one is a water tank garden bed. I've chosen nature wood sleepers for the first raised garden bed. It hasn't been treated with arsenic or chromium or any of those horrible chemicals, which is absolutely essential when it comes to growing veggies. You don't have to have good soil to have a good veggie patch. You can just build up. You can see I'm building right on top of our brick paving. I'm using my sleepers to build up about 400 mil high, and I'm just going to fill it full of good soil later. Now my next garden bed is going to be made out of blocks, not Lego blocks, Besser blocks. Now the advantage of Besser blocks is they're cheap, they're easy to put down, they're easy to lift, and they last forever. Now, anyone can make a bit of mud. It's 6 parts bricky sand to 1 part cement, a little bit of water to make it sloppy. We just put some on the outer edge and 1 on the inside edge. And the block just sits right on top. And then you need your friends to help with the rest. Boys! I have to say, this is a great option. It's just a water tank and it's so easy and so light. The reason why this is such a great option is that you can just plop them into place. And if you live on a rental property, you can just take it when you go. Well, you know, I have to admit that sugarcane bales are my favourite option. They're sustainable and super cheap. And quick, because you just plonk them into place. Now, I reckon this Besser block bed has come up a treat. All you need to do is seal on the inside and bag on the outside, and it looks $1 million. And make sure you join me later in the show, because I'll be filling up these beds full of soil and planting them out with veggies.
I love that scent. You know, I think it's really hard for me to grow a rose that just doesn't have a fragrance. In fact, I think that scent in general is a really intoxicating thing to have in a garden. So get out your pens and pencils, because I'm about to give you my tips for turning your garden into a fragrant paradise. Now's a great time to get your roses into the ground for all that warm season colour and fragrance. And, you know, I'm a really big fan of the David Austin roses because they combine the best of both worlds. You get the old-fashioned form and the old-fashioned fragrance, but you get the modern repeat flowering. So you get lots of flowers out of these plants from late spring right through to autumn. And this one, Graham Thomas, is one of the sexiest. It's got a gorgeous buttercup yellow flower. It's filled with petals, and I tell you what, it's one of the best. If you're after another flowering plant to inject seasonal colour and fragrance into the garden, then you really can't beat bulbs like jonquils. Now, they have such a powerful scent, it's kind of a love or hate fragrance, but boy, do they make an impact. And in the garden, they thrive on neglect. They're early flowering, so you get interest when you need it most. And in the vase, they're a really long-lasting cut flower. Growing pots in decorative containers is a really nice way to introduce movable scent into the garden. Now, this is a variety called Osmanthus Heaven Scent. Now, come in close and have a look at these flowers. They're white, they're tubular, they flower in early spring, but they pack a real punch. And it's one of those plants that trims up really nicely, so it forms a nice little feature shrub, or you could put it in the garden as a hedge. And don't forget to think beyond fragrant flowers. There's a whole world of fragrant foliage. Now, of course, herbs are the absolute classic. This is rosemary. Look how decorative it is in the garden, but of course in the kitchen, it's really fragrant and adds wonderful flavour to things like roast lamb. Now, if you're really into your herbs, then I've got a quirky little idea for you. Aren't these cute? All you need to do is get your hands on a nice stable pot that's about table height and then plant it out with creeping thyme, which tends to bounce back easily. And all of a sudden you've got your own fragrant seat. Now, another tip for you, when it comes to perfumed plants, the scent tends to come from oils in the leaves or in the flowers, and that oil is stimulated by heat and warmth. So if you want the best out of your fragrant plants, then put them in full sun. So there you have it, some great tips for a perfumed garden. So get out there this weekend, hunt down some of those varieties, and in no time you will have the most fragrant garden in your street.
showed you how to select your annuals, and now it's time for the fun part, and that's planting them out. Well, there's no better spot than the front of the house to put an annual bed. Great splash of colour as you walk through the door. Now, this is our area here, and it looks seemingly small, but wait until there's over 100 annuals. It's going to look spectacular. First things first, however, I'm going to mix in a little bit of cow manure and mushroom compost just to give the soil a bit of an extra boost because annuals are pretty heavy feeders. Now, I know this is a bit of a big job, so I've had my friend Christine, who's a horticultural buddy of mine, come in and give me a hand with the planting. Now, it's really important to get your area nice and flat so that you can see all the annuals are on the same level plane. Now, I've gone with something a little bit more traditional in my design layout for the annual bed. I've got a centrepiece of a diamond on its side, and then I'll infill with a darker colour, and then we're putting a border around that. In this case, we're using the pansies. But you could, of course, do it very simply, do a block form, or get a little bit creative and do a pattern. Because we've bought advanced annuals, we've planted them pretty close together because they're not going to get much bigger. But if you buy them in punnets, for instance, you should allow for their maximum growth potential, say about 20 centimetres apart. Now, annuals aren't just happy in the ground. They'll do perfectly well in pots. And when teamed with a lovely charcoal like this, they look quite spectacular. I've got the primulas in the centre, stepping down to some pansies around the outside. And here's a little tip for you. They don't all just have to be flowers. This is actually an ornamental kale, which looks quite spectacular in a modern glazed pot. Now, the last and most important thing is to water all your annuals in well. And to keep them looking their best, fortnightly application of a soluble fertiliser is important, and also removing all your spent or dead flowers. Now, I don't know about you, but I think that looks pretty spectacular, and all in under 2 hours. And of course, if you create an annual bed like this, you'll be the envy of all your neighbours.
These days, bringing a sense of Australian style to your garden is so easy because plant hunters and breeders have introduced a whole new generation of stunning Australian plants, and they're popping up all over the country. Now take a look at this. This is one of the most stunning specimen trees that you'll ever come across. Now, when most people think of wattles, they think of brilliant yellow flowers, but this variety you would grow for its foliage alone. It's called Lime Magic, and it's easy to see why. It's got this brilliant foliage that glows in the sunlight. It gets to about 4 metres tall and has beautiful pendulous foliage. All in all, it's a really stunning looking plant. But if you want this kind of look, but something a little bit smaller, then I've got another really nice one to show you. Now, this is Acacia minicog, and it's a low-growing compact form of the same species. It always reminds me of a 60s hairdo because it has these sort of mounds of emerald green foliage, and the new growth is quite lime green. It's one of those plants that copes with heavy soils. It's low maintenance and drought tolerant, so you get this wonderful lush green look even in a dry garden. This is one of those plants that when it's in flower, you just have to have it. It's called the Quallop Bell, and I wanted to show you it because it represents one of the most exciting things to happen in native plants, and that's grafting. See, this plant comes from the sandbelts of WA, and here it is in Melbourne doing really well because it's been grafted onto a tough rootstock. Just don't be afraid to cut this back right after flowering, about 90%, to keep it looking really good. The other great development that we're seeing in Australian plants is natives that are tailor-made for containers or small gardens. And this one is an absolute ripper. It's called Banksia birthday candles. And it's been around for probably about 25 years, so it's very tried and true. It's long flowering and the birds just love these really orangey yellow candle-like flowers. Now this is another long flowering beauty. It's called Tylotus phoenix. It's fairly new on the market, and again, you get about 9 months of colour out of this plant. Begins flowering in early spring and continues right through to late autumn. Just don't be afraid to chop it back hard, at least once or twice a year, and in about 4 to 5 weeks it'll be flowering all over again. This is a lamandra called Tanika, and it's one of the best varieties that's made its way onto the market in recent years. It's got this fine leaf texture. It does flower in the springtime. It thrives in sun or shade, and as you can see, it makes a striking border. So there you have it, a selection of stunning native plants that'll fit in perfectly at your place.
Back to the veggie patch from scratch, and now it's time for the fun bit. We're going to fill the garden beds full of soil and we're going to plant them out. But the first thing you've got to remember is drainage. Now, vegetables hate wet feet, and that's why getting the drainage right now is absolutely crucial. So I've taken out a couple of bricks from the bottom of my bed, and I've added weep holes as well, just down here, so the water can drain away. 10 centimetres of gravel down the bottom, and I'm going to do that with all the beds. Now to the soil. This soil has been specifically formulated for veggies. Absolutely delicious. But if you can't find it, just buy the best quality soil you can get, and I'll show you how to improve it. Now, the last thing we want is to come back in a couple of months' time and it all to have settled down about halfway. So I'm overfilling it by about 20% and I'm compacting it down as I go. Now we need to turn that soil into the perfect mix. A couple of bags of soil conditioner is exactly what you need to add slow-release fertiliser and a whole range of nutrients into that soil. Now the next ingredient is a soil treatment called dolomite, and dolomite sweetens up the soil, adding vital nutrients like calcium and magnesium. Now that's perfect for things like tomatoes and beans, and all you need is a cup per square metre. It's also important to add blood and bone now and not later, because it slowly releases over 3 months. Now this one has potash in it as well, which really helps fruiting and flowering, which is great for tomatoes. Okay, now all that hard work's done, it's time for the fun bit, and we're going to get planting. I think when you're starting from scratch, it's probably better to go for seedlings because they're quick and easy and you get instant results. Now remember, we've got 4 different garden beds and we've got 4 different groups of vegetables. The first group are the legumes, and they actually add nitrogen to the soil as they grow, so that's our first group. Now the next group are leafy greens. This is what I call my every night veg because I love salads so much, and it includes things like lettuce, spinach, mitsuna, all the delicious things. The third garden bed is full of fruiting vegetables, things like tomatoes and cucumbers. I'm going to put them on the edge. The reason why we rotate the crops at the end of every season is because different vegetables like different nutrients. Last but not least are the root crops and stem vegetables, things like leek, beetroot and some onions. Now the other reason why we rotate the crops is to reduce the build-up of pests and diseases actually in the soil, so we've got healthier vegetables and we don't need to spray as often. It's a good idea when you're planting a little seedling just to add a few water crystals, just a pinch at the bottom of the hole, and that'll drought-proof that seedling all summer long. When you're planting leek, you just want to plant them at the bottom of a trench, so as they grow you can hill them up and their stems remain nice and white. Now I need to do is give them a really good drink with seaweed solution, and that stops the transplant shock from each seedling. And that's it from the annual veg. But next week I'll be getting into perennial vegetables and companion planting.
Sure was jam-packed full of good information. I may have planted about 100 annuals, but you really worked hard, Linda.
It was a mammoth show, and I hope you got some really good tips and tricks for your garden.
Yes, and I hope you're all inspired to get out there and plant lots of new generation natives and fill your garden with perfume.
Because next week I'm going to bust some popular myths about growing Australian plants.
And I unravel the mysteries of mulch. Probably one you're very familiar with would be horticultural grade pine bark. You'll see it in kiddies' playgrounds, and it's actually used as an ingredient in potting mix. And in a few weeks' time, you'll see some great potted specimens of citrus for small balconies.
It's also tomato planting time, so I'm going to get stuck into the veggie patch. I'm also going to give you some top tips for camellias for every situation. So we'll see you next time on Garden Angels.